for calling the Old Paris Flea Market, Oklahoma City's largest indoor-outdoor market. For hours of operation and location information, please press 1. For rental space information or to reserve a space outside, please press 2. And for all other inquiries or to speak to an operator, please press 6. Your call is being transferred. Please hold. Old Paris.
Hey, are you guys open today?
We are till 6 o'clock.
Do you have a dress code?
We do not.
Nice. Glad to see it hadn't changed. Eddie, what if I told you there was a place where you could find women in hot pants and halter tops? Booths with Chinese throwing stars that featured a sign explaining that it was illegal to own these, but not illegal to sell them, and they were just for demonstration purposes only. Sand sculptures, CB radios, $2 sunglasses, people arguing in Vietnamese, Indian tacos, factory second blue jeans, cowboy boots, food poisoning, turquoise jewelry, vans, skateboards, collector spoons, harmonicas, knockoff cologne, stereos, funnel cakes, jewelry, those High Plains drifters, Clint Eastwood ponchos, stuffed animals, canteens, typewriters, baseball cards, watches, pagers, framed art, dream catchers, candy, a booth with a dude with one of those magnifying lamps tying fly fishing flies, guitars, banjos, toys, saddles, purses, candles, samurai swords, band t-shirts, bootleg band t-shirts, movies on VHS, clock radios, airbrushed car tags, airbrushed 3/4 sleeve length t-shirts, airbrushed anything you gave them, live music, car break-ins, Rambo knives that broke on the drive back home, which is bullshit because it cost $5 and the compass on the end probably worked. And you're going to take it to the woods and survive off the land for an afternoon until mom said it was time to come home for dinner. But it was okay because the family was going to Del Rancho for steak sandwiches after. And we're probably going to go in, sit at the red booth, use the sticky phones with the ketchup residue on it, and it'd be one of the greatest days ever.
Oh, that place sounds amazing.
Well, there is such a wonderful place in South Oklahoma City. It is called the Old Paris Flea Market.
Oh my gosh. Tell me about it.
I went there as a kid. We all went there as kids. And it was like a different world when you stepped onto that parking lot. It was a huge building, and there was a caste system there. Vendors outside of the building itself, they had these wobbly tables that were sitting in the sunlight. And it was just tables with just crap. I once saw a box of old 10-key calculators that were from some smoke-filled office. And for some reason, the sides of every one of them were sun-faded, like they all sat by a window. But they had them out there, and a guy had like an old generator or something where you'd plug them in and show you that it worked. And so outside of the outside booth area, between the dogs that were just wandering around out there, they had, I don't know another way to describe this. It was like the ring around the garbage. It was just dudes selling mostly stolen fishing rods out of their truck beds, and custom vans with shag carpeting opened up to display a collection of non-matching stereo equipment.
Nice.
But mostly it was just crap that looked like it was from their yards, I guess.
So this is the lowest level of the flea market.
Yes, yeah. You go past those guys, and then you get to the inner part, like the outside vendors that were just sun-baked, and they had those pavilions when the Oklahoma wind would allow it.
Yes.
I'm telling you, dude, for a kid, it was something.
Well, I can smell it the way you're describing it, because I think all of us has been to a flea market, but there's that smell, that tangible feeling that this encompasses every sense that you have when you go to a flea market.
This place to a kid, it seemed like a cross between a carnival and like a Persian bazaar. Now, I don't know what you call it in Tennessee, or I've been to flea markets in Tennessee. I don't know what you call these people, but we in Oklahoma as a kid back in the 80s, we just called them lake people. Yeah. They're fine. They're great people, but your parents wouldn't let you stay at their house.
No.
Like I said, I don't know what the equivalent is in Tennessee. Lake culture is a big deal in Oklahoma. But when you see them, a staple of these people were cutoff jeans, shorts, and concert shirts from bands that your older cousins had on 8-track. So in my case, it'd be dudes with like Vietnam War tats and a Bachman Turner Overdrive shirt.
Nice.
With their cutoff jeans. Yeah.
Do you think there's a close relation to the lake people and like carnies?
Not exactly. Carnies are their own kind of folk. Now, if you lined them up in a police lineup together, which has happened a lot, you wouldn't be able to distinguish them with the naked eye. You'd have to talk to them for a little bit. But, think back then, and this isn't even a knock on this place. It's part of its charm. I think it's gone, by the way, but you remember walking around in Walmart and you see a dude just sucking on a lung dart, like right there in the middle of the store, like knocking down a heater while he's looking at like heating pads and ointments and like, throwing them on the floor and just stomping on them, like and walking away. Like people would smoke everywhere. So I'm not saying that's a flea market thing, but I'm sure they're vaping now.
I do know that at the flea market that we attended in Upper East Tennessee is where a 15-year-old high school student could buy a case of Levi Garrett chewing tobacco for $10. And were there IDs? Of course not. Were there any kind of checks and balances? No, they weren't necessary.
No, they're not. They weren't then anyway. So here's the deal. I'm not being classist here or judging. If I were there today selling crack garden gnomes from the back of my truck, that a kid would say, like, who's that fat guy sucking down that chili dog with the Oreo Speedwagon shirt on? Like, what's that? How do I not be that? Like I was doing 30 years ago. And the dad would just say, son, just stay close to me. Like pulling him away from me. So I get it. I'm not judging these people. It's like a vending machine with a little screw in it that will, when the chips fall down, another one's right behind it.
Right.
So it's just the new generation, and I would fit right in now, I'm sure. So
absolutely.
I'm walking around that place with Dad. I would usually con my dad into taking me when we would go. And honestly, like I remember one time, it's like, hey, Dad, can I have that dog that's like walking around inside the place? And it's a big building. And like Dad was like, oh, son, that's someone else's dog. I hope. Like, I don't know why he's in here and why he's got a Doritos bag stuck to his side there. But it was just, I can't describe it and take you back to it because it was a great mix of that era. Your little league coach is just sucking a chain smoking and probably popped a beer with his koozie. And like, it was just how it was back then. I'm not knocking the flea market. It was a snapshot of that time. So, the 70s and 80s, there was a mall that was built in South Oklahoma City called Crossroads Mall that was just ubiquitous. I was talking to a buddy a few weeks ago, and she said, yeah, that's when me and what's her name went to Crossroads and got our ears pierced. Like, that is just, Crossroads is ubiquitous in this town of Oklahoma City, as just being the place the Southsiders go to shop. It was gorgeous inside, and at Christmas it was all decked out and beautiful. And so you could go, and so I guess essentially this Old Paris Flea Market was Hee Haw Crossroads.
Oh gosh, this is you're speaking my language.
So I've looked at videos about this place, because I'm not out there, and I'll see videos of people shopping at the Old Paris Flea Market. And kind of like I said, my memories are a throwback to that era. It's not about the flea market because it looks like it's cleaned up and the shops are more organized now. And I didn't see any dogs walking around in there. People would shop in retail. It was like a big, cool indoor outdoor mall with booths rather than like permanent stores. And so it's thriving. Crossroads Mall is empty.
Mm.
It was in foreclosure. Dillard's, John A. Brown's, a local Oklahoma City joint, it's gone. Foley's, Dillard's, Sears, all the stores are gone. It's empty. I think there's a high school in one part of the mall now. Other than that, it's just desolate and empty. Guess what's still kicking and going strong?
The flea market.
The Old Paris Flea Market.
Yes.
It's still up and running, man. And looks like I said from the videos, doing better than ever.
So when's the last time you went?
Oh my gosh. I never drove there. So I was always with my parents. So 86, 85 maybe.
What are you doing with your life?
Before I forever had a license. Well, because I don't need 45 Cubert shirts, which is my last memory of the place. I'm pretty sure those aren't available anymore. But, there was a time in my life where 85-cent Rubik's Cubes that worked some of the time and 8-inch portable black and white TVs were a really big draw.
Yeah. No, I get it
now. So does this exist outside of South Oklahoma City, something like this?
Yeah, we had the same thing because I can't compare the Upper East Tennessee culture to the Central Oklahoma culture, but I'm sure there's many things that are virtually identical. We had the same thing. It was I hate to use the word redneck because sometimes that can be used as a negative connotation, but I don't know any other way to describe it because you had a lot of these old timers that were wearing, like the overalls with the flannel shirt and it was you'd have booths where they would be selling baseball cards in old paperbacks, but then they'd also have a pen that would have like 8 puppies and another pen that had 14 kitty cats in it. And I mean, you could buy anything and everything. And there was plenty of stuff there that you probably shouldn't let a child see, but man, it was fair game at the flea market. There was no rules. There were no age limits. It was a free for all.
So I remember in like old, I won't say documentaries, but I've seen old films of like, they would call them swap meets in the 60s and 70s. And people now in the movies, they all show up in their halter top and Mary Tyler Moore capri pants, hopping off of dune buggies and eating hot dogs and having a great time. I suspect that's not exactly how it was. You probably have some guys out there selling car parts that are probably on some directories.
Yes,
back then.
Absolutely. Yeah. They probably should. They probably had some sort of directive that they were not allowed to be around school children or churches.
Pregnant women, children,
yes,
anything that scares easily.
Yes.
So, like I said back then, and really, I don't want to put these guys in a bad light. I loved it there. My dad wasn't wild about it, but he would take me, like I mentioned about my Rambo knife. That's a true story.
Mm.
What else did I ever get there? They had clown wigs, which were selling.
Of course, they had clown wigs.
Why wouldn't you? They would call around. Hey, do you guys have clown wigs? You might try Old Paris. I don't know why you didn't anyway. And so the rainbow colored wigs, and that was never my thing. But I did buy some $2 sunglasses, and they were red. I remember taking them home and going to the garage and taping off the lenses and putting white stripes on it, like my boy EVH's guitar.
Ah, nice.
and it was kind of 80s cool for a little bit, and then I lost them, I guess. I
Oh,
don't know.
well,
I
I'm
don't know
sure
where
if you
they
went
are.
back to the flea market today, I'm sure they have a pair just like them that's there.
There's no chance that those
Oh,
glasses are not
there's a
available right
great
now.
chance.
Yeah,
There's a
I mean,
fantastic chance.
yeah, there's no chance they're not available. They're
Oh,
there,
sorry. I
and
misunderstood you.
and they may be $2.
Yes.
Now,
What?
the litany of items I mentioned to you were things I remember seeing there. I don't know if they still sell typewriters, probably, but I didn't I didn't hit half of that place at what was available.
What about food? Did they have? Because I know today's the day. In our generation, we got food trucks, and they're fancy. And the next thing you know, you're spending more at a food truck than you would if you went to the Applebee's. What kind of food did they have back there?
Well, I did mention the Indian tacos and food poisoning.
That is right. You did mention that.
There were just I think there was a not really a restaurant. That's not really a restaurant crowd, but I think there were hot dogs out there and I think pizza. I'm not sure.
You could always count at the flea market that was in Jonesboro, Tennessee. There was always funnel cakes, uh, and then always someone who was making that kettle corn that you would buy a bag of it for like $4 and it would last like a year and a half.
Yeah, it's like a pillowcase.
Yes.
Right. I wonder of people who hear this. Like I said, it's the Black Friday show. You're out shopping anyway, man. Swing if you're in Oklahoma, swing by Old Paris and pick yourself up some factory second flip flops. I mean, so the little thing is, but not between your big toe and the second toe. Big deal. You just wear them.
This year, it might be a little tighter budget for people. And if you're doing all your shopping on Amazon, that could get a little pricey. You can go to the flea market and for a fraction of your budget, probably take care of everybody on your list and then some.
If everybody on your list wants used CB radios, Merry Christmas. So what? So do you have to go rural? Because I don't. Here's another thing. This is a South Oklahoma City staple. When I looked it up online, I was pleased as could be. First of all, to find it still open, to find the exact same sign on the top of the place in the same font. It's kind of a how do I describe this?
It's
A
comfort
modified.
food.
It is. Yeah, it's kind of their font is kind of a modified Boston Red Sox kind of font looking. I don't know why they chose that. And I dug into it a little bit. It turns out that building before it was a flea market was some kind of early Oklahoma incarnation of a Costco or something. I think it was like a shopping club or I don't know. It was before I was in Oklahoma. I don't know. But what I know now is it is paradise for like a preteen boy to just go in there. And I bought a Chinese throwing star there. Here's the thing. In Moore on Broadway, there was an Army Navy surplus store not far from my mid-high across the street side, to the side. And you could get, if you needed some emergency nunchucks and you didn't want to drive all the way to Oklahoma City, you could go there. Pick up a canteen, some old dental tools for some reason, Army blankets. You've been to an Army Navy surplus store. There's no way you haven't.
Who hasn't?
So it was like, oh God, the flea market's not open today and I need some crap. So, I can go there. And so that would tide you over. But when you want a larger variety of Chinese throwing stars, which I bought one time, my parents didn't want me to have it. And I bought it. It was like $5 and it had, I can only imagine Chinese characters on it, but I don't know what they were. But I would go to the backyard and lean against this huge sycamore tree and throw my new throwing star against the stockade fence and stick it in the fence. It was an old fence and it was kind of beat up, so you couldn't tell. And I got pretty good at from 5 feet away throwing it at this fence until it went through the slats on like a perfect throw. It went through the slats, and I went to my neighbor's yard, Perry and Sonia Mars, and my job, aside from mowing that place, was to rake up those big frying pan sized leaves that tree would spit out. And it's a sycamore tree, so it it sheds bark and those stupid little balls and branches. I don't know how they get so big, because they just, like a snake. And so um part of the deal in Oklahoma is I didn't want to rake all that stuff. So you just rake it real aggressively. And if it ever gets up above that fence, those leaves are gone. It's always so windy. And so I'm about to let the cat out of the bag now. I would throw the leaves over in Perry's yard, who was just immaculate. That yard was like carpet. So long story short, there were piles of composted leaves by his tool shed back there that I guess he couldn't get to with his mower. Well, my Chinese throwing star got lost in the muck, and I climbed the fence. I couldn't get to it. And so it's there right now. I guarantee you there's a Chinese throwing star from the 80s between that old stockade fence and his tool shed. And I'd love to have it.
I need you to get some video of you in that backyard with a metal detector locating your throwing star.
Oh my gosh. It's gotta be worth the $5 just in metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
sure.
love to have it. If it's not corroded, if it's anything left of it. So that would have been 1980. Oh, I don't know, 5, 6 or so. But anyway, it kept me from cutting a finger off and getting caught with it and getting in trouble. So
that is nice. I know that when my wife and I first got married, we did not have very much money. So I needed some tools for the house. So we went to our local flea market where you buy one of those, like those cases. It's almost like a suitcase, and you open it up and it's got all the tools in there, the screwdrivers and the hammers
yeah,
and
I've
the
got
tape
one.
measure.
I didn't know there were that many wrenches in the world. I've got them. They're all lined up like the Osmonds.
Yeah, I can guarantee you, I got a really good price. I think it was like $25. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was a lot of money for us then, but look at all the tools I got. And I remember the first time I went to do a home improvement project, and the hammer broke. I mean, it just, like, the first time, it's like you hit something and it breaks in half. And you're like, well, that's not very good craftsmanship. And the same thing with the screwdrivers. You go to do one screw, and all of a sudden you think that you stripped a screw. No, it's the end of the screwdriver. It's gone.
Oh.
It's now it's just a smooth nub.
A smooth nub.
Sorry.
Well, I think the best recourse for you would have been to pack those things up, take them down to Clem, who sold them to you, and negotiate a fair exchange of either new tools or a refund. I'm sure that would have gone smoothly.
Yeah, that's not, those retail rules do not work at a flea market. That's the old let the buyer beware. You're on your own. Plus, Clem's not going to remember you.
Well,
I mean, he's going to remember you, but he doesn't remember you.
I'm going to tell you something. You know that going in, and it's part of the charm. It's part of the fun. Yeah. One of the videos I watched of the Old Paris Flea Market, in my 20 minutes of research, was this lady driving up to it and say, hey, let's go in and see what I get at Old Paris today. And she walked in, and she walked through those doors, and she's filming it. And I felt it in my chest, that checkered board tile that they have in the entryway, exactly the same. It looked as big as it did when I was a kid, which is surprising, because when you're a kid, you go back to it as an adult. It's like, this is dinky. It's terrible. It looks as big as it did at the time. And what I was struck by is the rows are straight now, and there's less chaos, and there's families in there, and the booths look nice. And I will tell you this, there seems to be a larger Tupac t-shirt collection in there now than there was when I was a kid.
Yeah, things have
So
changed. The
yeah,
society's changed.
have have they ever?
Yes.
And so she's walking around, and the thing that cracked me up is that this is where I can go for makeup. Like if you're in a pinch, because it's not real high quality. So I thought, oh yeah,
Oh,
not every some things are never going to change.
I actually went to a flea market a week ago. We're recording this on a Sunday. It was a week ago today. And they're on one of the tables, they had house cleaners. And you would get like these 3 bottles of like Ajax toilet cleaner that would be wrapped together with duct tape. And you get all 3 of those for like $8. And you're like, what? There's got to be some sort of, what is going on? Where'd they come from? What's the story? How did they do this?
Why do these Ajax products keep going up for price in Walgreens, and now they're under lock and key there? It's weird because you could just go to the flea market and buy it. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I'm not claiming anything was hot at the Old Paris Flea Market. Certainly not now. But outside in the ring around the perimeter, probably.
yeah. Jewelry. Did you mention that in your list?
Yes.
Okay. Just, I mean, yeah, but I mean, what if I buy my wife some jewelry and then I bring it home to her and then her neck turns green
Well,
and she'll say, where'd you get this?
You give it to her. You get the reward of being married and bringing your wife some jewelry. And then you just steal it back from her that night. And then you kind of act all incredulous the next day when she can't find it. And like, do I do anything right? Like, why do I even bother? And you barely bother. But, you just toss it because, your $8 diamond necklace, she doesn't know.
Well, I think your next podcast should be on romancing your spouse.
Yeah. Yeah. I have I got an ex-wife that would probably not subscribe to that episode.
Moving on.
Yeah. I don't know. That's my only theory there. But I forgot about, I did mention watches, but I skimmed over it on my list. Evidently they thought that Okies were just habitually late, or they were going to fix this problem, because it was, do you remember in Gone with the Wind, that scene with the slow music and she's looking over the hills of Georgia, and as far as the eye can see, there were dead soldiers?
Yes.
And the camera pulls out and there's mist. That's what the tables of watches looked like. You walk in there like, my Lord, there's more watches than people in Oklahoma City. I don't know how they got them. And why would you unload 85 million watches for your Saturday sales? Like, that's a lot of, there's got to be duplicates there, right?
Yeah. And when I was back in school, there were the swatches. Remember swatches?
Yeah.
Those things were big. And of course, I came from a lower income family, and my parents couldn't get me a swatch. And then you buy something at the flea market that they call a swatch, but it's not a swatch.
Well, they had TVs that, like, off-brand TVs. Like, hey, what do you think about this Sony television?
So,
I was kind of looking at this magnet box.
oh goodness.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I had one of those rubber watches in high school. I paid for it. I went to Crossroads Mall, again, back when it was a mall, and they had a sports store there, and they had these watch styled watches, but it was in colleges. So I bought a Georgia Bulldog watch that was rubber, had a rubber band around it, and the face was cool, and it had that swatch, that rubber like screen protector on it. And it was more expensive than a swatch, but it had UGA. So
Yeah,
I wore that for a while. I was proud of it. I mean, I could have had a swatch and saved some money, but I couldn't have represented those 8-win annual dog teams back then.
Can you describe the smell of the flea market?
Yes. I am 52 years old, and I can smell it right now. You walk in from the parking lot, which was gravel, and so it has a certain smell to it too. It's kind of like if it's a long walk and it's hot, your mouth is dry because of the gravel dust that's in your mouth. So you walk through the perimeter, the guys in the BTO and Jefferson Airplane shirts with their cutoff shorts. And you kind of, it's, first of all, it's polite to look at their stuff. When you're walking through, you just want to, no, sir, I'm going to go pay $4 more for something inside in the air conditioner. No. So those people had a earthy smell to them.
So you're telling me that there's different smells based on the caste system of where they were in the flea market?
Yes. Yeah. I'll get there. So
Okay.
then the booth people outside still baking in that Oklahoma sun. That it was similar. So when you go in the place, there was like this fan that would hit you, and it had a mixture of the food, and I don't know that a noise has a smell, but if it did, it would smell like I told you, like there's a big Vietnamese population in Oklahoma City. I guess during or soon after the war, Catholic Charities, the boat people, and they've settled in an area. I had a really good friend in high school that was Vietnamese, and he was born in Saigon in a bomb shelter during the war. So I mean, there's a big pocket here of refugees that are now citizens with jobs and paying taxes, and so they were there. What they don't smell like Vietnamese people; they smell like people. But when you're in the place, you would walk, depending on the booth, you'd walk by those T-shirt places, and it smelled like that silk screen kind of plasticky.
Oh, I smell it.
Yeah, and I would always, I've played guitar, and I would always go to where they had the cheap Chinese guitars, and it has kind of that woody smell and the feel and the steel and the strings. And oh my gosh, popcorn was all in the air in that place. You could smell that everywhere. And it was I just loved it. I would love to go back. You touch those knives, those pocket knives that full well were not gonna, you're not gonna hand this down to your son one day. Just go use it till it snaps off in something.
I'm glad you said something and not someone. So that's good.
It's a guy that didn't watch his mouth down at Thunderbird, but it was a flea market knife, so who cares? But
now, what about
ink? You smelled ink for some reason in that place. I don't know if it was like those old or those boxes of bandanas that had print on them or something, but man, I can still smell that place.
So what about like the old men that would make things out of wood, where they would be like carving and cutting, and then next thing you know, you get like a fox that's on a log, or even the one in Jonesboro, Tennessee, had a guy with a chainsaw who would make like bears, like grizzly bears on these.
Dude, that's big cool.
Wood. Yeah, so maybe that's more of an East Tennessee thing and not I mean, how many grizzly bears or black bears do you have in central Oklahoma?
There is none that I know of. That's an Appalachian Smoky Mountain thing that you're talking about. All right,
well, okay, that's special.
Yeah,
I didn't know how good I had it.
We were more dream catchers and turquoise jewelry. Moccasins. Good Lord, brother, if you need some moccasins, I can tell you a place. It's on Eastern, South Oklahoma City. So yeah, different culturally, but it's the same people.
That's amazing.
I would go back today. I would love to visit that place and to see over the tops of the counters instead of eye level to it like when I was a kid.
I would love to go with you. I think we would have a fantastic time. We would probably get kicked out just from laughing and
I'm
pointing.
telling you, I would buy so much crap, and I would talk to the locals. I've said this before. I remember I've got an episode podcast, I have a podcast episode coming up about a couple of devastating tornadoes that went through the area. And I remember FEMA came and they didn't pay much attention to FEMA because they were just too busy with shovels helping out neighbors and rebuilding the place. And it's just the hardiest, best people in the world. And a lot of them show up at Old Paris. I'd love to go and just talk to the people and buy a broken fishing rod from a guy on the back of his truck.
Great memories.
Well, hey man, I'm glad that you're a veteran. I know that, guys our age have probably hit the flea market, so I'm glad you're here today.
Well, I mean, I actually, like I said, I hit one last Sunday. And the funny thing is, because I'm trying not to be a class elitist, because like I said, when we were, when Lisa and I first got married, that was 35 years ago, and we did not have, as my grandma used to say, a pot to pee in. So we were pretty low on the funds, so we would have to go to flea markets just to buy a non-stick skillet that that you're going to be throwing out in a month and a half because it's going to be warped in the middle, and all the Teflon that's toxic is going to be coming out in your food.
Your scrambled eggs has little black flakes in it. Oh, there's a lot of pepper on that.
That's probably not. This is not going to hurt. And who thinks long-term thoughts when you're in your lower 20s and don't have any money?
Hey man, people at DuPont wouldn't put it in here if they, thought it was dangerous.
It's good for you. But I still enjoy going, and it's rare for me to buy something. But I mean, we were at one not too long ago, and there was a brand new one of those robot vacuum cleaners that you put on your floor and let it just run all over the place. It was brand new in box for $50, and I don't know where it came from, but we bought it, and it's working in our house today. So there you go.
It fell off a truck.
Yeah, it sure did.
You know how that works. And these people just lucky enough to find them. God bless them. Yeah. And they bring them to the flea market.
They pass their goodness on to us, the consumers, because they care.
Yeah. Was it a Roomba or was it a Ramba?
Yeah, it's absolutely no name that anyone's ever seen on any of these things before.
Gotcha.
But so it works.
Well, that's all that counts. Eddie, dude, I appreciate you coming with me. Hey, we'll hit one day together. That'd be fun.
That would be a blast. Thanks, Scott.
And if you need a deal on 12 Don't Tread on Me flags, I know the place.
Thanks.
All right, that's it. That's the Black Friday show. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving and got to spend time with family. I've gotten some feedback that I should announce where you can find the show, but kind of like the VCR my parents bought at Montgomery Ward when I was in the 7th grade that came with a VHS tape with video instructions on how to set up your new VCR, you're already listening. But you can keep up with the show on our socials, Free Nights and Weekends podcast on Facebook, most of the others. We'll be back next week with some do's and don'ts about a common problem that a lot of us had in school, mostly don'ts. See you next Friday. Tell your friends. Did I mention the rock band mirrors like you could win at the state fair? Oh man, that's another episode, the state fair. $4 off with a mullet. They had this one ride called the Pistol.
In the news.